Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Challenge in the Spin podcast. Today, I'm honoured in this episode to be joined by the brilliant Michele Ohayon. She is an award-winning filmmaker, director, and producer who is known in her various works for her deep commitment to telling raw, powerful human stories. In today's episode, we sit down to discuss one of her most recent and widely acclaimed works, her Netflix documentary, Strip Down, Rise Up. This documentary is a moving and intimate exploration of how women use pole dancing as a path to reclaim their bodies, to process trauma, and to rediscover confidence. The film follows a diverse group of women, many of whom are battling various issues such as shame, grief, or past trauma, as they embark on a transformative journey through pole dancing, movement, and to find a community inside a pole dance studio. Michele's work has been shown at major festivals, it's aired on global platforms, and has earned nominations and awards across the industry. I'm so excited to talk to her about the making of Strip Down, Rise Up, especially since this documentary was a pivotal reason behind myself beginning my own journey of pole dancing. If you haven't seen the documentary, it is available on Netflix to watch. I highly recommend. It's also key to note that this conversation has been a long time in the making to finally release this episode. So this episode was actually filmed over a year ago with Michele. So I'm so excited to finally get the opportunity to release it for this podcast. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed chatting with her. Michele, thank you so much for joining us on the Challenge in the Spin podcast. Really, just before we get into the questions and things, if you could just tell us a little bit about what sort of work you're doing at the moment, any sort of upcoming projects or what you've been doing recently in life.
Yeah, I'm always doing something. So currently I'm producing a series about missing and murdered Native American women. We're shooting on the reservations with a director that I've worked with before on an award-winning film called 100 Years, Women's Fight for Justice. I'm very interested in women's causes, issues, and giving a voice to women who may not be heard. Mm-hmm. I'm also working on a spiritual film about a spiritual school. I cannot mention the name yet because we're still closing deals and stuff, but that's going to happen in a couple of months. And my latest film that I produced is going to air on HBO on January 31st, so in about 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And that's a wonderful film that a young director directed, and it's called Unbreakable, the Tatiana Suarez story. It's about an MMA fighter, a Latina MMA fighter from Los Angeles who beat the odds and became a UFC champion. So
amazing.
Again, a woman.
Yes. Very, very busy at the moment.
Yes, that's the kind of, I always say that Strip Down, Rise Up was about the feminine side of women, and the one I just produced is about the masculine side of it. And so we own both.
Yes, getting all areas, definitely. So you were saying, of course, Strip Down, Rise Up. So that's obviously this episode for Challenge and Spin. We're going to focus on that. So Strip Down, Rise Up really focused on the empowering women through pole dance and movement. And I think that was amazing because pole dance, I believe, in society is still something very negatively perceived. Why did you then think to do a documentary on pole dance, especially with the criticisms around it?
I literally stumbled upon S Factor, which is the main studio I'm featuring, mm-hmm. and I saw that it was beyond just pole dancing. I love just pole dancing. It's not the point, but I saw that there was a transformation happening, and women were sharing, and they felt very safe. Mm-hmm. to share. You don't do that in a strip club, and you don't even do that in a normal pole dance studio. So I wanted it kind of the light bulb went up, and I was like, okay, this is a wonderful way to tell a story of how women get in touch again with their femininity and their bodies. And not all of them, but many of them had some kind of trauma or body image issues and couldn't make that step towards their bodies. And so for me, it was not just the pole dancing, but really what it came with and the possibilities that it opened for women. This is a film, I have a lot of respect for strippers, but the film wasn't about strippers. It was actually about women dancing for themselves or for other women, not for men at all, not for money at all. It's a whole different movie. And so that's why, it's kind of unique, because you're seeing the other side of pole dancing, that's also a sport, a competitive sport, but also a vehicle to shed trauma and any layers that prevent you from getting in touch with yourself as a woman.
Definitely. And I love too about it personally that with all the different stories, there was also twists that happened throughout the documentary. So you of course had Evelyn, who went through her personal journey, and then a big massive shock that also occurred to her during filming. And then you also had Amber, who actually then decided to quit the process. It wasn't for her. Was there any other sort of twist during filming that then caused you to change the course of the direction of the documentary?
Yes, I mean, that's the beauty of documentaries. There's always, because you can't predict what's going to happen, and you have to be open to changes. And you may want to follow one person, all of a sudden another story rises, and the camera goes that way. And some people, you think something might happen in their life, nothing happens, and you're like, okay, this story is very flat in terms of the film, and another story is emerging. So to answer your question, Jen, the woman with the red hair, the teacher, she wasn't going to be in the film at all. And I just filmed her because she was teaching. And then she came to me one day and she said, Michele, I have to tell you something. And then she told me her rape story. And then she also, so that was unexpected. And all of a sudden, filming with her parents, and she wasn't even supposed to be a character in the film. And then she also told me that she wants to go on a weight loss journey because it prevents her, it affects her health big time. She doesn't want to die. She wants to really take care of it, and that she was going to talk to Sheila Kelly about it. So I was like, okay, I'm coming to film it. So those were not at all part of my schedule, so to speak, or the narrative. So even in the editing, I had to squeeze another line of story, which is why the movie is 2 hours, because I didn't want to, they're all valid stories, and each one of them represents somebody else, another woman somewhere in the world, and that I wanted them to identify with at least one of the characters. So that's one example.
Definitely.
Allison, who's a Mormon, the Mormon lady, she all of a sudden called me. She lives in San Francisco. I live in LA. And she said, Michele, I'm about to leave my husband. I'm like, what? And I said, okay, I want to be there as soon as possible. She, can you wait? And she said, life, takes over. And I gathered my crew and came shortly after. She told her husband, they're back together meanwhile, which I'm happy to hear. But at that time, it was crisis time. And, it takes a few days to get there. And so we filmed right after. The scene with her children was right after she told her husband, because he found her Instagram account and he forbid her to use it. And that's where the clash came down.
Yeah, definitely.
So as an example, lots of twists.
Yeah, and I've actually talking about Alison, I particularly liked her story because I myself am a Christian. So for me, Alison was really the story that stuck out for me. Was there a particular story that had a profound impact on yourself while making the documentary?
Yeah, I just want to make a correction. Alison was not Mormon; she was Christian. Amy was Mormon.
Yes.
I got very, very close to Amy, the Mormon, ex-Mormon Amy, because she was very open from the very beginning. So the process of trust was immediate, because she has no shame about her past, and she has no inhibition. She immediately said, here's who I am, here's who I was, and here's what's happening today because of who I was.
Yeah.
So we just bonded right away, and stayed in touch for a long time. And I was very impressed by both her physical strength and her mental strength.
Definitely.
And I just saw a very determined woman who really beat the odds in so many ways and so many fronts. And she now has a very successful pole studios, more than one, multiple ones. Meanwhile, she and her husband got a divorce. So that was after the film was finished, and that was a shocker for all of us. So, but that's on the one hand. On the other hand, you have the lovely, beautiful, formidable Janine Butterfly, who, whatever she does, it makes it seem so easy, but yet she's a trailblazer. She was on that crazy pole for Cirque du Soleil that was like curvy and tall, and the courage that she has. And yet she is a mother of two, at least two. I think she also has a stepchild. And she does it all. And how she bounced back from her pregnancy, back to training, back to performing. And for those of us, or some of us, who think that we can do it all, she does. And so it's a wonderful role model, even though she didn't have a big trauma or anything like that. Her beautiful dancing and her poetic expression was really an amazing thing to watch. So I love them all. Evelyn, oh my God, she's amazing. I mean, they all are incredible.
Yeah, they're all, and that's what I really loved as well in the documentary, that it's so many different women representing different types of pole dancers, different types of people going through the process. And was that something going into it that you really wanted to achieve in this documentary?
Yes, yes. So that's why I have, I think, 6 characters. Excuse me, and some, secondary characters, because I wanted to have a variety of, background, culture, race, everything possible that I could access, that had a story to tell, that was willing to share the story, and so that everyone can find their role model in there.
Definitely, definitely. And it came across amazingly in the documentary. So just a quick pause on this episode to give a very massive thank you to our sponsors of this podcast today, which is Dragonfly. So if you're not sure of what Dragonfly is, it is a brand with a dragonfly symbol that combines the beauty of sports with perfect clothing. Dragonfly lives for quality sportswear and maximum exercise experience, and its main focus is of course on its pole dance clothing, which is why it is very kindly the sponsor of this episode. Dragonfly is clothing that gives the freedom of movement, and it's also functional, durable, but looks good too, which is very important. Today it now supplies sportswear to more than 80 countries worldwide and is one of the top market leaders in sportswear for pole dancing and aerial hoop. So I am so excited to have Dragonfly as our sponsors for this podcast. The link to Dragonfly polewear will be in the description below. Go check them out, and thank you Dragonfly for the sponsor. People are talking about quite traumatic things, what actually should they disclose for this documentary in keeping them safe and comfortable, and sharing their story for others to maybe relate to it or find support within it?
So first of all, it's completely up to them what they want to share and what they don't want to share. This whole everything in documentary is based on trust. If there is no trust between myself and the subject or the character of the film, then there will be just shallow sound bites and statements that will not make the film as deep as I want it to be. So the first step is to create this trust, and one way was a woman, but also my whole entire crew was women. I had 2 female DPs, gaffers, sound. Everybody in the room, almost all the time, were women. So that allowed them to open up and to share. And I'm sure that there were things that they didn't want to share, but somehow, as the process went by, I mean, we were there week after week after week for months. So they got to use us. We were really a fly on the wall. And as as the process, unfolded, they got so used to us and the cameras, they didn't even see us anymore. And then it was a very natural process of sharing the deepest emotions, especially Evelyn. Every time there was something going on in her life and she was really suffering. And so that made it possible. And it's just a bond that we create with each other between me, the camera, and the subject that is very, very close. And they would call me before filming, after filming. We were in touch throughout the whole time. It becomes my family, the people I film, they become my family. And they tell me everything that's going on, and they alert me, oh, this is going to happen if you want to go film, or no, you can't film this. And of course, then I convince them, and usually we do film it. Because they want to share. They want other women to learn from their stories. That's why they're doing it. It is also a cathartic process for the person who is participating, because the camera tends to enhance the reality. It's just the nature of the beast. It's not on purpose. It just happens. The moment you put the camera, the process accelerates. And so I believe that I've seen that in my 40 years of making movies every time again. It's just like magic. And that also helps them go through a cathartic experience and heal in a shorter amount of time, because everything is augmented by us by just being there.
Yeah, definitely. And you were talking then about, of course, this process was very healing for a lot of the women and for the people that watch it too, that maybe are going through similar situations. I then also discovered that you were a yoga, or still are a yoga and meditation teacher. I think that's amazing. On this podcast, we talk a lot about mental health and well-being. Did you see then the connection between mental health and well-being and pole dance and movement? And what were those benefits that you could see the connection between?
Oh yeah, 100%. So yes, yoga, I've been practicing for 30 years. It saved my life in many difficult situations that I found myself. I was going back to the mat and going back to my meditation and just keep practicing and getting it out of my system, and moving through it, which is what they did. They moved through pain and moved through emotions. And first of all, just generally, people say that if someone is depressed, they need to move, they need to go outside, they need to go in nature, they need to move their body. The first tendency we have is when we're sad or depressed is to sit or lie down and do nothing, which is what your body is telling you, I don't want to move. But it's counterintuitive. We do have to move. So that's on the very basic level. Then you have women who have been sexually assaulted, and many feel that they have been betrayed, they have been invaded, they have been, I'm not a psychologist, sorry, but the first thing you do is detach from your body.
Yeah.
And the thing that what I saw with my own eyes is that how sensual movement, whether it's pole dancing or just sensual movement, really, really helps women get in touch with their femininity. And a part of it is lost when your body has been assaulted. I can't even imagine what happens in those situations, but I've witnessed women talk about it and cry about it and share. And so Megan, who I absolutely adore, who was assaulted by Dr. Lori Nasser, who is now behind bars. She was 15 when she was assaulted, and when she came to S Factor, she was early 20s. And the reason all this pain came back was because she was called to testify, and then everything came back. And she made the brave decision to join this pole dance group, and her transformation was amazing. So I do believe that a big part of mental health is movement. Any kind of movement. It can be just put the radio on and dance. It can be yoga. It can be Tai Chi, anything. But moving through, so getting the muscles to almost reject the muscle memory and the emotions that are stored in parts of our bodies, in pockets in our bodies since early on, since we're born, we're storing stuff. And if you don't move it, the toxins and all the emotions that are, not helping us, they'll stay stuck forever. So movement is absolutely key. And when I say movement, I also mean breath, awareness of breath, like we do in meditation, to really use the breath to move things out. And so we always say that the inhale, you're bringing in oxygen, you exhale, you lose toxins and stuff you don't need. So that's very simple. Anyone can do it. You don't have to do much, just be aware of your breath.
Yeah, definitely. And I know personally, like, when I still do pole dancing, the mental benefits that I got from it too. Um, but yes, Michelle, so unfortunately time is running a bit. I could sit and talk to you for hours about Strip Down, Rise Up and all your work. My final question then just for you is, this podcast is of course called Challenging the Spin, because I think it's important to challenge the spin and the narrative on certain topics. And for me, pole dancing is a big one. You were talking there at the start of giving women a voice that maybe don't get a voice or their story told. What is the sort of focus in your professional or personal life that you think individuals need to be challenged on? And how do you think we could effectively challenge it?
Well, you call your show Challenge the Spin, and I am going to say that my work is about spinning the challenge. Just the other way around. I want to take a known, I want to take a known subject, and I always do, that is maybe has a lot of stereotypes stuck to it, and kind of spin it on its head and go, no, that's not what you think. It's actually different. And here's how it looks like, or at least one angle it could look like. So my focus is definitely women empowerment, female empowerment, but I also, I made movies in South Central LA about inner city kids and homeless women and a bunch of other subjects. But the idea is really to represent the underdog who may not have an opportunity to be seen or heard, and use my skills as a filmmaker. It's like giving them a megaphone so they can cry out in their own voice, and say, we're here and this is who we are and this is how we want to be. And the other thing that's very important to me is not to portray just a victimization, but also going from being a victim to a victor. And even if it's a partial victory, but seeing that process rather than just say, oh, this and that. I want women to be shown as strong, as being able to overcome obstacles, and not just be, as the stereotype says, the weaker sex. We're strong, we stand tall, and we can handle a lot. And a lot has been given to us as women and mothers and caretakers and the working force. It is a lot. And if we use our bodies more and our heads less, the critical mind less, and more our hearts, I think it will be an easier way to overcome all the challenges that are thrown at us.
Definitely. And I think that was a lovely way to end the episode. That was so motivating for me too, just listening to that. So I know people listening will appreciate that so much. So yes, thank you so much for Michelle, for talking with me on this episode. I know Strip Down Rise Up
Of course.
was very inspirational for me, and it was actually the main reason why I started pole dancing after I watched that. So
amazing.
yeah,
And by the way, I just want to tell everybody it's on Netflix, and they can see it. The Netflix CEOs call it the evergreen movie. It will be there forever. So, but of course, we want as many people to see it, not just women, but also husbands, friends, so that they can understand what women are going through.
Definitely, definitely. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that information with us. It was
You're
amazing and
welcome. Thank you.
encouraging. But yes, thank you, and keep
Okay.
up your amazing work. Love it.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks for reaching out. Bye,
Thank
Faith. And
you.
keep up your dancing.
Yeah, thank you.